first, I want to say thank you very much for taking some time to come and listen to me speak. I sincerely hope that this is of use to you. This is not about me, so this is about how this presentation can help you. So don't hesitate to stop me and ask questions. Don't hesitate to ask me for clarification or further details on anything that I talk about. So I'll be talking about 3 different areas, and depending on the audience, and I'll ask about who's in the room in just a second, I'll concentrate on 1 or more of those areas, more or less. And we can adjust as we go also. So the first area is going to be some of my experiences in starting up an IT consultancy, a small business, and how over time the business model changed and why, and the ups and downs, the good and the bad. And then I want to talk to you about what I see the future of IT being. You know, I'm not a visionary by any means, but I certainly have been around for a while, so I can tell you what I think is going to happen. So maybe you can prepare for, if you are in IT, and if you're not in IT, hopefully it will be some useful information for you. But then I want to talk to you about what you can do to prepare for those sorts of jobs, and any other jobs after you graduate. And some jobs that are coming up in the next few years that don't exist today. Some jobs that are going away, potentially, or there'll be less of, they'll become more obsolete. So that's generally what I want to talk to you about. So again, don't hesitate to stop me at any point. So just so I get a feel for who is in the room, obviously there are a lot of students here, and I see some faculty. Are there any entrepreneurs in the room, or aspiring entrepreneurs? Okay, very good. Are there any students, or should I say, how many students are in the IT or computer science? Okay. And general business degrees, marketing, finance, business administration? Outside of the business school? And what would that be?
I'm making my own major actually, but
Good for you.
Sustainability and communication and marketing.
Good for you. I like the idea of making your own major. I was mentioning to Dr. Nuno that a lot of people think to themselves, I can't find a job. Well, if you can't find a job, make a job. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So if you can't find a degree, make a degree. So let me start. So we talked about the first bullet item, and I think we've talked enough about the second bullet item. Let's go on to sort of my story. So when I went for an MBA at Northeastern University. They have a program there called the high-tech MBA program. It's a really intense program. They require you to be working full-time while you're going to school, and you have no choice but to take 3 classes per semester. During that intense time in my life, I developed a very significant interest in entrepreneurship. I absolutely loved the business planning class. I mean, the idea of taking nothing and turning it into something, taking an idea and turning it into something more tangible, I just fell in love with it. So I promised myself that at some point I would start something. And my background was in IT, so I said, why not IT? But I put off those plans for a little while because, well, I had a family, and I wasn't in a position to take too many risks. A few years later, though, I had the opportunity. Boston Scientific, where I was working at the time, had a huge layoff, and they kept me around for as long as they could, and they finally gave me a nice severance package, which I then said, okay, it's time to do this. So I went out by myself, doing consulting on my own. Within a very short time, there was more demand for the services. So I hired another person, and I hired another person, and another person, and another person. I'm kind of speaking ahead of these slides. And then in total, we ended up having about 8 employees and 2 subcontractors. And that was going along kind of okay. You know, I was making a decent profit. But as time went on, I started to realize that, well, there's a lot of administrative overhead in running a business. I can't be billing as much as I used to be billed because I have to now be managing the people that work with me. So I said, I have to really look at this business model and see if I can take it to the next level. So here's what I come up with. We're going to focus on higher ed. We're going to pick students such as yourselves that are highly capable. We're going to take members of the community. So there was a little bit of a social entrepreneurship slant to this, helping people. And we're going to support them by seasoned professionals in project teams. So that worked for a little while. But again, it was something that required a lot of administration. And then one of the employees got sick. Another employee got sick. And a third employee was hired by the client company, which, by the way, they're not supposed to do that. Not supposed to do that without asking. But it happened. And you learn when you have client relationships, you really don't want to mess those client relationships up by making a big deal of things like that. So then I started to think, this is a pain in the butt. What am I going to do? Do I rehire people? Or do I pursue a slightly different business model? So where am I now? I'm doing most of the consulting. I have one contractor working with me. I don't have too many more plans to hire too many more people at this point. I'm busier than ever right now, and I'm making more than I was making before. I have more time to do some of the things that I really need to do, like optimize the current process, the tools, the services, and to then increase my rates. But I don't want to stay where I am. I want to do something more. So, in the future, I want to take advantage of some of the technologies that I'm going to tell you about a little bit later in the presentation to create almost something of a virtual company. A lot of the problems that I see in companies are not about the actual problem. It's very easy to see something and say, that's wrong, it shouldn't be happening. Or you're wrong, you shouldn't be saying that. Anybody familiar with LTI, Learning Tools Integration? There's a product out there called Canvas. This is just an example. It's a product that I'm actually going to be hopefully helping to implement in the future at Boston College. It's a fantastic product, but what I just absolutely love about it is that they take web plugins. They can plug in from here, plug in from there, plug in from there, and they easily integrate those plugins into the product. So if you need something that links to a scheduling tool, you don't have to build it. You just integrate it right in. If you need some way to integrate social media, you just integrate it right in. And there are dozens and dozens and dozens of tools to integrate. So in the future, a lot of services, web-enabled services, and a lot of jobs are going to have to do with bringing together these plugins and these services into a way in which the end user, the client, can actually use them in a more integrated fashion. Even the work that I do, I'm a project manager, it's what I do the most of. But in the future, probably called project integrators, not so much project managers, because we're going to be integrating these various processes and tools and people across the world to getting work done in an organized fashion. It's already starting to happen. The best project one of the best projects actually I've ever been in. Nobody was physically present in the same room. Nobody. I was in Boston. Half the team was on another side of Boston. The others, some of them were in Florida, North Carolina, and I think there was somebody else out on the West Coast. We hardly ever, we met just because we wanted to know each other. We met once so far. Never met in person another time. It was a fantastic project. This is all going to bring about, everything is being done through the web. Security and data privacy is going to continue to be a hot field if you're into IT. Analytics or business intelligence is also something that is hot and is going to continue to be hot. And what that is the use of tools like Cognos. Anybody heard of Cognos? So that's a BI engine. It takes data, analyzes data, produces reports for decision-making processes. It helps to make better decisions. It's not operational reports such as how many units did I sell yesterday. It's trending, forecasting, bringing together data from various sources in an organization in order to answer questions that were not able to be answered before. Mobility. You're going to be able to work from the beach. You just are. I already do. Technology is there. Speaking of which, you're going to be required to work more and more for yourselves. You know what I said about employees earlier? I'm not the only one who's catching up. There are a lot of people out there who realize the economics of not having as many employees and hiring people as needed. Not that I'm against having employees. There's a lot of benefits for everybody to having employees. But sometimes competition drives companies to use resources only as needed. Which means, take charge of your future. Don't expect someone else to give you a job. Understand what the trends are. Understand what's coming. Understand that a systems analyst of 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago is not the same systems analyst or project manager of 5 years from now. Understand the differences and prepare yourself for that. I talked about some of these things already. Are there any questions on this particular slide or in terms of what's coming in IT? At least my opinion, my humble opinion. I want to make sure I get through some other slides as well. So these jobs are still in high demand, but like I said, they're not what they used to be. They're not the same. As a project manager, I have to understand that the more routine tasks that I do, the easier it is for those tasks to be done by someone else across the world who is smarter than me, more highly educated than I am, maybe has just as much experience but is just not physically present. What do I need to do to compete? What do I need to do to be able to charge the rate that I charge? If I'm thinking about hiring those people, then why shouldn't others think about that too? So the more, I don't have an easy answer for that, but there are many jobs that exist today that will not be the same in even just a few years. So some of these jobs are examples of ones that may not, and somebody was telling me earlier that they're planning to be a web designer. I need to explain what this means. So it's not that these jobs are going to go away completely, but it's just that these jobs are going to be significantly different and significantly reduced, the number of jobs. The systems administrator traditionally administrates the servers and the hardwares in the data center. Companies don't like data centers anymore. They want to move their storage and their servers to the web. They don't need that system administrator anymore.
in-house. They're paying for a portion of a system administrator somewhere else. So there will be a need for fewer system administrators. Web designers, or in actuality, pure coders, you have to be very careful about your future. Need to know more than just the technology. Need to know more than just the tool itself, whether it's .NET or C++ or any language, Java. The more you can engage with the end user and understand the business and say, here's how the technology is going to impact your bottom line. Here's how the technology is going to help you to do your job better, the more needed you will be. The same thing goes for hardware specialists. The people who are in the data center trying to actually fix the computers, fix the servers, fix what they call the blades. If you have all of this hardware somewhere else, and the company is just renting the hardware, well, somebody over there can take care of the repairs. Whoops. Do we need to do that? So, if you have any questions on particular salaries that are out there, it's pretty easy to do a web search. But these are, I don't know if you can see it from there, these are some sample salaries that you can expect in the Boston area for various types of positions. These are average salaries, not necessarily all starting salaries. This is just average salaries. But this is more or less what you can expect in this area. I would say that someone with a 4-year degree who does pretty well in school, has some level of experience, maybe they did part-time work in a company in the IT department. If they're working halfway between here in Boston and beyond, towards Boston, I think it's possible to make $45-50 starting. But if you're good at what you do, these are the salaries that you can potentially earn. These are employee salaries. If you work for yourself, there are many risks that come with it, but there's also the reward. In some cases, you can add 50% or 100% to that if you work for yourself. But remember, you have to pay your own benefits. So here are some other salaries, compensation. Okay, so 5 years from now, this is taken from DICE. Anyone familiar with DICE? DICE.com? Get familiar with it if you're in technology. It's the #1 job site for technologists. I put my resume out there, and Mr. Smith, good to see you. I put my resume out there, and others have as well, and it gets to a point where it's just too many emails. So you get out of 100 jobs, you might get like 10 that are a good fit, but you do get replies, you do get interest. More than something like a Monster. Monster is general jobs. DICE is very focused on technology. So project integrators, it's like a super project manager. It's the person who knows how to do project management, who has the experience. Excuse me. Who has the experience, but who's also very aware of the services and plugins and tools that are available and can integrate them into the project. Anybody know Basecamp? Anybody here of Basecamp? So Basecamp is an online tool that enables collaboration project teams distributed all over the world. So a project integrator would know about that and would know how to implement that in the project. And they would know about many other tools. It's hosted, it resides somewhere out there. So imagine how secure it has to feel. How secure your clients, your end users need to feel that their data being somewhere out there. And it's not like me saving a file to SkyDrive. This might be very, very private and sensitive information. So people who know security and web security in particular are going to be very important working in conjunction with the cloud administrators. Let me skip to, actually no, I won't skip this next one. The virtual connection engineer would work closely with the project integrator about. You know how many websites you go to, they're pulling data from other locations? It looks like it's all the same website, but not a majority, but maybe a lot of the data is being pulled from another website, or many different websites, but you don't know that. You could be, when you're purchasing something, I'll use Amazon as an example, although I don't know what Amazon does. But when you're viewing information about books, you could be viewing it in Amazon. But when you're paying for it, although it looks like Amazon, it could be something completely different. And every piece of that transaction along the way could be pulling information from different places. You don't know that. So that's what a virtual connection engineer is. And you're familiar with Siri? On the iPhone? Well, that's going to become bigger and bigger. You know, the ability to just sit back and talk to your computer and not have to touch the keyboard. The ability to use your phone or your mobile device or your watch even as a virtual assistant. So if you think Siri is sophisticated, wait a couple of years. I can't even tell you what it's going to do. I don't think anybody can. But that is an area in which there will be need. Please remember that technology is not enough. Knowing that technology is not enough. Very important to be able to deal with people. Very important to be able to speak with people. To be able to relate to people. I'm an introvert. I've become a person who, I have a hard time actually going up to people. But I have to work on it. I have to work on it because it's hard. I have to manage people. I have to perform. I have to make sure that if there are risks, they're addressed. It all has to do with people. But believe it or not, so is the programmer. But the programmer sits in a room and all they do is type. And I have a choice between hiring that programmer and the programmer who understands the business of my company and can say, you know what, there might be a better way. If you thought of this, who do you think I'm going to pick? Even if the first programmer is a superior programmer, if I know the second programmer knows how to get it good enough, I'll pick you good enough. So just keep that in mind. I mean, I'm not putting down the technology. I'm just trying to say, supplement it with these other soft skills. The ability to communicate, the ability to just get along with people. So how can you prepare? Am I out of time yet?
15 minutes.
I got 15? Okay. So, how can you prepare? I can't tell you, I can't advise you, I can't concentrate on something. I don't care if you're a junior, senior, sophomore, freshman. Yeah, some relevant experience there. that website. Volunteer somewhere. You've got skills. Someone in the room said that they have social media skills. Volunteer those skills. You're helping yourself, but you're also helping somebody else. Don't be like 95%. Be the 5%. Be the 5% who do it because not everyone else is doing it. But because they know it's the right thing to do. You got to differentiate yourself. You really do. If everybody else is doing it, and you're doing what they're doing, you're not different from anybody else. So get some sort of differentiation in your resume. Start now. Get relevant work now. If you're working in a grocery store, if you're working in a fast food place, sure, you got to pay the bills, but have a plan to work in the field that you want to work in. Go to meetings of people that are in the field you want to be in. Network. No, I got my current contract at Harvard. I got it because I knew somebody there. Not just because of that. I guess like people knew that I'd done it before. And other people said good things, etc. But in the end, I had worked with someone else that works at Harvard. And they put in good work for me. Take the time now to develop those relationships. Because when you're out trying to find that job in 2 or 3 or 4 years, you're going to realize, wow, I really should have developed that friendship 3 years ago, because it took 3 years to get to this point where they have that level of trust in me. And again, give back to the community. It's not just about you. In giving back to the community, you also get to know people that will be able to help you. You don't have to ask for their help. They will voluntarily help. As I said before, stay in tune with the news, trends in IT, understand what it is that you want to do, how it's done today, and how it will be done in a few years. I keep talking about IT, but please remember this relates to any field. Every field is changing. So, just keep that in mind. And this last one I find really interesting. Think of what a person in your field would want to do, would be doing in a normal day. Think of what they would be doing in your average week. Who would they be meeting with? What activities would they be doing? Where would they be? How would they be preparing for the next thing? Do what they would be doing. Be where they would be. The more you act like the person that you want to be, the more you actually will be that person. And I know that I sound like one of those rah-rah kind of people, those Tony Robbins of the world. But it is true. It is true. Any project whatsoever having to do with the university's systems. No? Okay. So this will be short. These are some things to keep in mind if you're ever involved in the project. There are also some lessons you learn here from that can be applied, I guess, in one's personal life. What do you think is the thing that I see the most in projects, multi-million-dollar projects, that guarantees their failure? What one thing, in your experience in life in general, absolute most obvious thing that you would expect everyone to know, what one thing do you think is missing from projects that causes the greatest failures? Communication is huge. It's huge. I'm giving you a hint with this slide. The first bullet. You're not going to believe this. A lot of times, you have money allocated to projects, big money, and no one agrees on what the end goal is. So you get a project, and you've got people in place to get something done. The people don't know what that something is. And if they do, they don't agree. And if they agree to some level, they don't understand how it's going to get done, who's going to do it, when the different milestones are. You know, it happens. So it's the role of a project manager to straighten all that stuff out. And I find that really interesting. It's what I do. But I consider this really, really good job security because it just happens so often. And you would expect, you know, the big corporations, the big consulting companies, not to be that way. It happens more often than you think. I've actually been pretty fortunate to, at Harvard and at Boston College, they do have their act together. No place is perfect, but it is unbelievable how often this happens. So since we don't have too many project managers in the room or IT projects going on, but they're involved in, I won't spend too much time on these slides, but some of these things do apply to other areas. Even in your project teams, you know, the MBA students, you're doing, I'm sure, a lot of group work. And you have end goals, you have schedules. Make sure that everyone knows what the end goal is. Make sure that everyone is clear on what the deliverable for your project is. Make sure you divide up the work and that those roles and responsibilities are clearly defined. And ideally written down, even if it's a couple of sentences. Make sure you have some rules of the road. So guys, gals, you've got this project to do. Here's how we're going to work together. If we call a meeting, you're going to be present. You said you're going to be present. Something as simple as that. Have some rules of the road for your project team. So this relates more to the larger projects. But the principles do apply. Just remember, know where you're going, know how you're going to get there, know who does what. Have a process in place to monitor your progress. You know, a good thing to do is to assign a team lead to your projects. You know, and make sure that that person is very clear on what they're supposed to be doing. You can even have different team leads at different times. It's not about being the boss, it's about organization. Anyone curious about any of this project management stuff? Anybody want to be a project manager? Really? Great. I can tell you. And by the way, take down my information. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Send me an email. You can call me. Like I said, this is about you. This is not about me. You know, I'm not here to sell you because you're not in the market for the services I sell. I'm just here to help you. So don't hesitate